Hello and welcome to Mind of the Forest. I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue. Mind of the Forest is a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association where we talk about all things forestry. From landowners to loggers to wood manufacturers, all play an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important renewable natural resource it is. Managed forests offer more for wildlife and water protection, so the LFA advocates to keep forests as forests. This episode of Mind of the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. Welcome, Buck Vandersteen, Executive Director of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Buck, always good to have you.
And good day. Good day. The legislature has ended,
Yes.
we think, provided what the governor does on vetoing some bills. We might actually have some legislators, not all of the legislators, coming back for an override session, but that is remaining to be seen.
Those are rare, aren't they?
They are rare, and generally they're around social issues, but it is an opportunity for the legislature to say, Governor, we really think this particular piece of legislation is important for the state, and gives the legislature an opportunity that requires a 2/3 vote. So it's a supermajority in both houses, Senate and House, to override a governor's veto. But so you are right, it is unusual.
It's 70 votes in the House, and how many in the Senate?
Be 26, I believe, 26 votes in the Senate.
It seems rather a big challenge to get that many people to agree.
It is. So it really has to be a divide between the governor and the legislature, and sometimes that does happen. It's provided in the Constitution, and it's a way to balance the powers in the state.
The session ended on Thursday, June 8th.
It's by 6 p.m. sine die, which means with threat of death.
It's funny how the Latin terms often are so appropriate for certain situations. This was a really odd ending, it seemed.
It's an odd ending, but it is not unusual. This legislative session was 60 days. It was a fiscal session, so you would have thought that all of the fiscal matters would have been taken care of first. But as generally happens when you're dealing with budgets, you have the House saying we want to do one thing, the Senate saying we want to do something else, and you go from a 144-member body, 105 in the House and 39 in the Senate. You go from 144 members of the legislature deciding on what they want to do, and if they can't agree, it goes down to 6, 3 from the House and 3 from the Senate that come together behind closed doors and work out a budget. This legislative session, 15 minutes before sine die. The budgets were presented to both the Senate and the House. And members, rightfully so, were furious. They got 8 pages of amendments and wondered what's going on and all. But in the end, the budget pushed through. And, I hate to say it, but you have to pass the bill before you know what's in it.
Those are the exact words I was thinking about when they pushed things just to the very last minute. And so we have a budget. We have to see what the governor will do. I'm sure, as is usual, there will be some measures he just won't sign and allow to become into law. Some measures he will sign right away and try and get a little mileage out. And other measures he'll kind of chew on for a little bit. Then there's also the threat of the line item veto. And so that's a bit unique. That puts a little pressure on some legislators. Are we still in the wheeling and dealing stage for some things?
If there's any wheeling and dealing, it's someone going to the governor and saying, I really need this project. Don't line item veto it. most projects, depending on if you're friends with the governor or if you're opposed to the governor, really decides if your project moves through. We had a project at our museum, Forestry Museum, one year where the senator that was very much in favor of our museum had put some money in the budget for our Southern Forest Heritage Museum, and it did pass the legislature only to be line item vetoed by the governor, who was not in his favor. So it does happen. We've seen it happen, and it's not a pleasant thing because you work hard to get it in the budget only to have, in the end, it taken out.
We had talked in April pre-session about the embarrassment of riches, and I think back then it was even less. So they are looking at a surplus of more than $2 billion, I think. And roads and bridges in Louisiana are always top of mind, it seems. So will we benefit from that? Will the rural areas of Louisiana benefit from that?
Well, that theme carried through the legislature. Many questions were asked in committees. Is this recurring money or is this one-time money? So that theme worked very, very well. Money was used to pay down debt, to retire some of the unemployment insurance programs, but there was also opportunities there for teacher pay and for other projects that would move forward. One-time money. They tried to keep the cap on the budget. They might have exceeded it a little bit. Again, don't know that until we get the bill and can read through it and see what's actually in it. A couple things that did happen that directly affect the local government and infrastructure. Representative Bagley and Representative McFarland had both introduced pieces of legislation that would take more of the severance tax from oil and gas. You may remember that 75% of severance tax from timber already goes back to the parishes, but that's not so in oil and gas. Their bills, Bagley and McFarland's bills, would have put more money back in local governments for infrastructure improvements. Unfortunately, both of those bills failed in committee. There is money in different transportation trust funds that we hope get to rural roads and bridges. 70% of the roads in the state are in rural areas, and those areas are in great need for improvement in our roads and bridges. Speaking of some other things in the legislature that we were watching closely, there was one bill by Representative Bacala that would have allowed trespassing on private property if you were on running waters. Very scary bill for a private landowner to control who is passing on their property, even though it's running water. It is waters of the state. You can't block it. You can't do that. But if it's passing through private property, you do have a right to say, I don't want you to come through it. That particular piece of legislation was heard in a committee, and we only won that by one vote. It was killed by one vote, and that is real scary. Real scary that there's so many in the public that just think, oh, it's great if it's running water, if it's wildlife, if it's air and that we breathe. We can go anywhere we want to go, regardless of who owns the property or what it is, if we're just enjoying public air, water, and wildlife. So very dangerous.
That seems to have gained a little bit. That has come up in the past, and it has been defeated by a larger margin in the past.
Yes.
So that one vote means that it's gaining some traction. Is that something that we could possibly see again next year?
Yes. Yeah, I believe we will see that every year until that is resolved. Now, that's primarily a South Louisiana issue with subsidence and all of the canals and that have been built. But there needs to be some resolution to that, because in the legislation, it doesn't say this only affects South Louisiana. This says running waters, and there is no limitation to where water runs. So very, very big concern.
Curious thing is, if that is something that becomes law one day, then it doesn't lessen the liability that private landowners have if someone trespasses on their property and happens to get into trouble.
Yeah, it actually increases the liability because it takes out from the law the immunity that a landowner has for someone trespassing on their property. So if something happens to that person traveling on that running water and they get injured or something, they can go back and sue the landowner because the landowner owns the property.
Curious thing will be, since we're in an election year, how many people return to the legislature and who the new legislators will be and how they view private property ownership.
And that's one reason that we do have a forestry political action council that generates the money. We're not a whole lot of money that we generate from this, but this is from our members basically that say we need to be supporting people who will support us in the legislative process. And sometimes these are people in Lafayette, sometimes they're in Slidell, sometimes they're in the New Orleans area. But anytime we can further educate legislators, policymakers about the importance of forestry and what we're trying to do, the better it is. And this is a good time to get a legislator's ear because now they'll be deciding who's running in August. That's qualifying day. The primary election is October, I believe, October the 14th. That time from August when people decide where they're going to run to October 14th, we need to do a lot of interviewing with candidates. We need to be sure that we're finding those candidates that will help us open the door to developing policy. Let me say, with the limits in ethics, you don't, quote unquote, buy a candidate's support. What you do is you educate them about forestry and open the door a little bit so that when an issue does come up and you go to that legislator, they're not saying, well, who are you? They're saying, I remember you helping me. How can I help you? So it's a two-way street.
So at least you can get their ear.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And they get to know us and we get to know them a little better. So it's relation building. And there are great changes in the legislature. There are some that are retiring. There are some that still have more time in their respective bodies, but they see opportunities to run for higher office. So you're going to have a lot of changes. There's an old saying, you're either at the table or on the menu. And if forestry doesn't want to be on the menu, we better be at the table.
What are some of the other pieces of legislation that has come through the session, for this regular session, that has come through and we've been closely monitoring?
One thing that our industry, in partnership really with the oil and gas industry, and that is in the area of carbon capture and storage. Louisiana has a unique geological structure that makes it very ideal to capture carbon from manufacturing operations, send it miles below the surface into these caverns, and get credits for doing that. And it can become a very lucrative process for the industry that's doing it, and also for the local governments and the state that is receiving monies from that effort. There were some pieces of legislation that would increase the cost and regulation of those products to an extent that would detract from investors coming to Louisiana. Fortunately, all those failed. So I think the state has sent out a strong signal that carbon capture and storage is something that we want to have, and we want to have all parts of government, from local government, our natural resources department that monitors that, to the whole state, and to the landowners and all, that they will benefit from this opportunity for carbon capture and storage. Some other bills that you didn't read too much about, there was one bill that would provide a bounty on feral hog tails. in committee that failed, not because people didn't understand the importance of controlling feral hogs, but they thought maybe it's better to take money and put it into research for controlling populations than it would be to paying a bounty for a hogtail. You never know where those hogtails would be coming from, so
That sounds reminiscent of the Nutra program back in the 1990s.
Exactly. The other pieces of legislation, there were some that would do away with scenic rivers in certain parishes. Those bills failed. Another bill from a senator wanted to put monetary fee on any surface water that someone would turn around and use or sell to someone to use. Now, this is primarily in the oil and gas industry, where if you have surface water somewhere, and you want to use that water for fracking purposes, this would have been an opportunity to charge for that fee. The question there is, well, I'm a farmer, or I'm a timberland owner, and if I'm in timber and I have a mill and I want to use that surface water to wet down, keep my wood in wet storage, am I going to have to pay a fee to use that wood? Fortunately, that bill failed, but that has come up several times, and that is something that we have to watch closely. Senator Mills from the Shreveport area has been very, very supportive of the logging industry, creating an opportunity for, it's called the Timber Transportation Self-Insurance Fund. Some more legislation this year that helps establish that fund to get people better insurance rates and help them with this insurance market that we have. Insurance is still a very big cost. When we did tort reform a year or two ago, we knew that this is not an easy solution. There's some people, even in the legislature, that thought, well, if we pass tort reform one year and, well, next year things are going to be so much lower. Well, it doesn't happen that way. You have to build what's called an experience modification, and you have to, insurance companies need to see that the history of your safety is moving in the right direction. So we've done tort reform. We probably can tweak it a little bit more. But the other two legs of that stool, number one, hiring the right people, and secondly, making sure that they are well-trained and that they're safe on the road. Our Team Safe Trucking program helps address driver safety. I hear from so many people that, the log trucks look better on the road. The operations are doing better. During our annual convention this year, we're going to be addressing causes of accidents on rural roads. There's a partner that we have over in Texas with the University of Southwest Texas that is doing some very valuable research on accidents on rural roads involving log trucks. So hopefully by learning what's going on, that we can better train and we can better adapt to that. And while we're talking about log trucks on rural roads and the dangers of that, there is legislation in Congress right now called the Safe Routes Act that will allow log trucks to get on the interstate at state-approved weights. So that can be very, very valuable to us to get us off the rural roads, get us through these rural towns where people aren't paying attention to the log overhang. And as the truck turns, someone steps out in the road thinking that the truck is by them, only to get hit on the side of the head by a load of logs that's trailing behind the bed of the truck.
Well, more safety things are coming up with the loggers, so that's a good thing with this new program for, was it sort of like a group?
Yes, it's a self-insurance fund, and it's an opportunity to bring more competition into the market. The red flag with self-insurance fund is that you are liable in the long run to the success of the fund, which means basically that you get into the program, you may be the most safe operator, but if everybody else in that fund is not operating like you, and the fund goes belly up, then you are responsible for a portion of the debt that fund has created. And that's the downside of a self-insurance fund. The most important thing is practice safety, continue to work with your insurance companies, find ways to reduce that cost. And if it's being in the self-insurance fund, great, but know that you've still got to be safe. You still got to watch your P's and Q's.
Is this a little bit like what happened I think it started in the 1990s with the workers' comp?
Yeah, the Louisiana Workers' Comp Corporation formed a little differently. That was a quasi-state and private entity. It was extremely valuable for workers' comp. Workers' compensation rates at that time were just astronomical. And the Workers' Comp Fund was formed. It was managed well. People went into that fund only as a business of last resort. So when you went into that fund, you were paying a premium, a super premium for your workers' comp. What happened is people in that fund saw their neighbor practicing safety, and their rates were half of what they were paying, and suddenly the competition saying, well, look, if old Buck can do it this way, I can sure do it this way. And people started being safe. And today, our workers' comp rates are probably the lowest in this tri-state area just because of that effort. Hopefully, these self-insurance funds will do the same thing, but they've got to be managed well. Safety is number one, and if people don't take it serious, hopefully they're kicked out of the fund because they will only drag it down if they're not safe.
Okay. So what is next on the list? What else are we watching for? Or actually, we have to watch the governor for, I guess, at this point. Right?
That's the big thing in the budget. We hope that our Southern Forest Heritage Museum will get some money for some needed improvements or stabilizations. So that buildings don't fall down and roofs don't leak. We hope that there's some money there. The new Forest Products Innovation Center at Louisiana Tech will have some money in there to begin their construction, which is an extremely good program at Louisiana Tech, recognizing the importance of forest products and saying if we can establish a research center here for forest products innovation and get some scientists from the U.S. Forest Service and elsewhere coming in and researching and making product improvement, that's only going to benefit from these investments. So we're hoping that, and I believe that the governor will sign that and let that move through. Same thing at LSU with our Ag Center, which is such an important part of research, extension, and teaching in the state, that money's going to them to help with needed research facility improvement, faculty, extension work, having our extension people that do just a magnificent job reaching out to landowners and giving them the information that they need to be better managers. This whole issue of carbon markets during our annual convention this year, we're going to be spending a lot of time on some of the new biofuel plants that are taking our wood and making different fuel projects, hydrogen, biofuel, all of this. And also the market for carbon. How can I take advantage of what my trees are doing 24/7? And that's the beauty of a tree. It's taking carbon out of the atmosphere every minute, every second of every day of every year that goes on. And our trees are the best carbon sequester around. So how can a landowner put that into monetary terms? And there are people, there are businesses that don't have that luxury that we do in forestry, and they're willing to pay some premiums. And what we're trying to do here is see what is available, what is possible, and see how our landowners can benefit from that. We realize that it has been challenging of late because of lack of markets. Our existing industries are doing well, but we have done even a better job of growing trees. We're still growing about 70% more than what we're taking out, but we have new mills coming on. We have a brand new sawmill grand opening in mid-June. We have another one that is just around the corner up in North Louisiana, around Taylor, Louisiana, the Hunt Tulco property. And all of these biofuel plants continue to move forward. So we're going to be utilizing this wood that we're growing, and it's going to be extremely exciting for our industry and people to take advantage of this. Rural employment, rural economy, all will be very good. The common denominator, the basis of all this, is the tree. And we've got to have trees growing. We can't be taking trees or land out of production. Don't mean to be disparaging about solar panels and wind farms, but don't know of any wildlife that can survive under a solar panel. And I don't know of any tree that can grow under a solar panel. But these folks are offering really exceptional landowner values, but long term, you just have to wonder what that means to a healthy forest environment.
I think it's one thing that could be misconstrued by many folks, but it takes resources to properly manage forests and to keep them as forests, where, as you mentioned with the solar panel, like any other development, once that forest is gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And it will take a lot to convert it back to a forest, if at all. So resources are necessary to landowners in order to keep forests as forests, correct?
Correct. Working forests or keeping forests as forests.
And now the wildlife and the clean water and the clean air that go with it.
That's exactly right. It's good to be in forestry and very exciting this time that what we see happening in Louisiana, the employment that will come from these new facilities, the expansions going on in our existing facilities. Very exciting with the combination of new, existing, and that. And
it's especially beneficial to rural Louisiana, though, because you have these huge industries that are in rural areas because that's where the trees are, and they offer good-paying jobs to people in rural areas.
Absolutely. When you have these markets developing, then you have loggers with the opportunity of going to different places with their product, which gives them greater market leverage and helps them work a full week and do what they enjoy doing most, and that is producing timber.
And landowners being able to sell their trees, whereas they may be reluctant if the prices are particularly low.
Exactly.
Anything else from the legislature that
No, it was a good session for forestry. Thank all of the legislators that worked with us and understood the value of forestry and agriculture and natural resources. Appreciate all of that leadership. Thanks to all the members of the LFA and our partners that helped us work through all of these issues, and to be successful, it takes effort, takes communication, and we need to continue that. And we are a strong industry, and we make a significant contribution to Louisiana. We plan to do that for many, many more years to come.
One real quick note before we close this podcast, and that is about our annual meeting that's coming up, the convention coming up August 29th through the 31st. It'll be in Lake Charles. For landowners who would like to come and may not have heard about it, you can check out our website at laforestry.com, see how you can register and participate with us. And if you need any more information, you're always free to give Buck a call here at the LA Forestry Association. We'll be happy to help in any way.
And this convention is for landowners, for loggers, for foresters, for industry. Our program goes everywhere from the forest economy to supply chain issues, to carbon markets, to safety, also to passing a good time. So I guarantee you that if you come and if you attend the convention, you will learn something from it, you will meet some new people, And our exhibitors are terrific. The sponsors are outstanding. And it'll be a good time to bring people together to showcase what we're doing in forestry and making sure that we're all doing this. We're all working in the same direction to make forestry the best in Louisiana.
Buck Vandersteen, Executive Director of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Buck, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Minding the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. This episode of Minding the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender with over 100 years in financing timber and agriculture. They have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office, or you can find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, the LFA and its programs, and how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers in Louisiana, go to laforestry.com. You can send comments and suggestions to me via email, jzeringue, that's jzeringue, at laforestry.com, or check out the show notes for our contact information. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're minding the forest for you.